Hey everybody, welcome to the Ongaku Concept Podcast. I am Josh, and...
I'm Charles.
Yay, Charles is here.
Yay, it's your boy.
And,
it's your boy.
We are going to be talking about arrangement this week.
Woo!
Because arrangement's not something I talk about too terribly often. So Charles and I are both heavily involved in the video game cover community. Basically, we make our own arrangements of songs. Usually people refer to them as remixes. Technically, a remix and a rearrangement are not the same thing.
I never know what to call. I just go with covers because most of the people in our situation call them covers.
Generally, when people say remix, they mean rearrangement. That's the way people generally use the term these days. So I thought it'd be cool to talk about our own approaches to arrangement, and so we've both been super busy. Arranging all kinds of stuff this month, last month too. We've just been arranging stuff nonstop this year.
Nonstop. See, because it's the summer, because I'm in a situation where when school starts, I'm going to be packed with other stuff to do, and I'm going to barely have any time to do any music. So I figure do everything I can now, get it done, so that school's easier when it eventually comes,
Yeah.
It ruins everything.
There's 104 days. Who has 104 days of summer vacation?
Man.
Right. So arrangement stuff.
Yes.
So Charles.
Yes, Josh.
How do you? So when you are looking at a song, when you're doing covers and stuff, and I'm not even talking about for projects and things like that we're a part of, but just when you're just doing a cover for your channel. How do you go about choosing songs? Well, sure, let's start with there. How do you go about choosing songs? Does it have anything to do with the content that's already on your channel or your viewer base, or what kinds of things do you take into account when you're just picking songs to cover?
When I have 3 Sonic songs uploaded in a row, I don't want to upload a 4th Sonic song because I know they're great. I know they get views, but I don't want to tire people out.
Yeah.
Because I want to, because I have a small channel right now, and I want to grow it to small channel for a small boy. Hey. I want to grow it to the point where it could be a lot more varied with not just video game stuff, but maybe TV, anime and movie stuff, definitely Broadway stuff with a certain project that's coming in a year. I'm very excited about that. Hashtag wait for it.
Hashtag wait for it. So basically you don't want to have something from the same game, too many times in a row. Because
I don't want to be, the Sonic cover guy or the Undertale cover guy.
I am.
Right.
I'm not. I've never covered a song. Well, I'm not gonna talk about that. I've never publicly covered a song from Undertale before.
I thought you were gonna say you never covered a Sonic song for a second. I'm like, boy, you better not.
So basically, the way my YouTube channel started, I started out doing covers of Sonic songs on the guitar, meaning I literally just had the song playing in the background and I played the guitar part over that. And that's what my channel was for pretty much the first 5 years, I think, of my channel's life.
Yeah, that sounds right.
2010. Yeah, for about the first 5 years,
yeah.
I mostly did covers that way, and most of it was Sonic music because it was
it's what you like,
a lot
man.
Easier. Yeah, it's what I liked then. It was also a lot easier to play than a lot of the other shred stuff I listened to because I was a noob. And Sonic stuff provided a really great way for me to, practice with songs that were at my skill level or, within, that were, easy enough that I could kind of get by.
Right.
So through that and also working on the Sonic Stadium Music Adventure 2012 and some of their subsequent albums, I kind of have a reputation as the Sonic cover guy. Which is, it's kind of cool, having that kind of reputation, because I've seen comments, in the Summer Sonic chat that happened.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Like during the Summer of Sonic stream a few weeks ago, people were talking in the stream about how I should perform at Summer of Sonic someday, and I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That
like,
made me so happy. You don't understand. I feel me with pride was not the word I was looking for. So much more inside me.
So I kind of became associated with just doing covers of Sonic music all the time. And so when I started to like diversify, even now, like I don't really cover Sonic stuff so often, but I still have that reputation. So I do understand where you're coming from with, because people still ask me, when are you going to cover this Sonic song or whatever. So I do understand what you're talking about with like not wanting to become too closely tied to any specific game or series or whatever.
Right. And that could also just like that's also a thing of just what I want to do with my channel. Like if I didn't want to cover, other things, I'd be totally content with just staying in the world of Sonic music or whatever, because there's just so much you could do with that. I think there is. But like when it comes to choosing stuff just in general, usually it's a matter of just putting Google Play Music on shuffle and seeing what I get. If I get something good that resonates with me, especially if I can license it, let's do it. If I have a good enough idea, and if I don't, listening to a song, I can at least get breadcrumbs. Like if I put on like a song from, let's say, Chrono Trigger, I don't like what I'm listening to, at least not in terms of composition, whatever, just in terms of like I don't have an idea for it. Click on the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, see what else I can find. Ooh, there's Millennial Fair. I could do. I love you, Annie. I'm not actually doing anything with that yet. Maybe someday. But it's that kind of thing. It's just like I find whatever. Like I try to find whatever's good. I have a little request form just because coming up with this stuff is hard. It has one thing from our friend Christian, but it's just it just helps come up with other ideas when the brain's dry, which can happen sometimes.
Yeah, it does. So for me, I started doing. I transitioned from doing just guitar covers to doing full arrangements in late 2015. No, it was
like October something.
Yeah, it was late 2014, wasn't it? Something like that. Yeah.
October 31st, 2014.
Okay. Yeah, that was when I uploaded my I uploaded my first in a long series of full covers. And what I mean when I say full covers, I mean I did the entire arrangement from scratch. Anyway.
Right.
So my process in choosing songs to cover, I mean, it's usually just I listen to a lot of game music. So if I hear a song that I really like and I have ideas for it, then I'll try and cover it. But I've been trying to kind of focus on like making my channel grow and stuff. And so in order to do that, you have to like pay some attention to your audience and what they respond to and stuff like that. So with that in mind, a lot of my taste in music and game music tends towards, for whatever reason, tends towards things that are really eclectic.
Yeah.
And not terribly popular. And I don't say that to be a hipster. It just happens to work out that way. I don't know. I have a thing for like looking for stuff that nobody watches. So covering songs that I like doesn't always result in, views or engagement because people just aren't looking for that. Because, I mean, what are your chances are on watching a cover of a song that you know versus one that you've never heard of, even if it's by a cover artist you enjoy?
Right.
I mean, I almost never listen to covers of songs that I've never heard of, even if I know the artist. So there is that to think about when you're trying to make a channel grow. Is, focusing on popular songs will naturally get you more results. And I don't think it's bad to focus on doing songs that are popular. I don't think it's, like being a sellout or anything like that. To
it can be, but
it can be, but I don't think it's inherently
right.
that way. Because ultimately what it comes down to is that you're covering songs that you like. And, even if... So, for example, I've had a lot of thoughts about covering Megalovania from Undertale because it's really popular. And memes. It's really popular, and I think there's some really cool things I could do with it that would be really different than what's been heard so far in the cover community. But even so, I've got other songs that are less popular that I have more drive to cover, so it's just about finding a balance between stuff I want to cover and stuff that'll get me, allow my channel to grow. So with that in mind, I pay some attention to that sort of thing when choosing songs to cover, but mostly it's just I listen to a lot of game music and I think, okay, well, if there's a song that strikes me in some way that I can do something with it, that would be interesting, then I start thinking about maybe covering it.
Right. And I'm also in the stage where, and this is also what I'm going to say about this, I can, since my channel is small enough where I can, kind of afford to take more risks just to see what works, whatever clicks, and then
and my channel's dead enough that I can do that too.
Hey! Not for long. It's all about experimentation, really. At least when you're starting off.
Yeah, when you're starting off, you have a really good advantage to that point because you don't have a big viewer base that's going to, drop off or, care in some way if you do stuff that's outside of what you normally do.
Cover Green Hill Zone. Make it metal. Now I think it's a good time to just transition, shift gears a little bit. Start talking about, how we actually make the arrangement happen, what we do, the nice voice crack, when we arrange, how we go about it, how we make sure that it's done as best we can. So yeah. Josh, want to start?
Sure. Okay, so I think I'll talk a bit about, how about I talk about my last cover and then I'll talk about one that I'm sort of in the middle of. Okay, so I already talked about choosing songs. Okay, so what about when you already have a song in mind and you want to do something with it? Okay. Well, for me, it kind of depends on how that inspiration came to be in the first place. Because again, like I said, usually if I choose a song to cover, it's because I've already thought I can do something cool with this. So I usually have something in mind when I go to it. Sometimes it's just that I like the original arrangement and I think I could reproduce this just kind of with my own stylistic tendencies. So if it's a rock song, I'm thinking, okay, I can kind of remake this, but vary the rhythm and the way the guitars are played and stuff to just fit my own way of doing it. But really the fun part with arrangement comes from totally changing up the style or going in a very different direction than the original to present the material in a new way. So my most recent, as of this recording, I think my most recent cover on my channel is a cover of Ice Mountain from Sonic Advance, which I did for the Materia Collective album Mobius in honor of Sonic's 25th anniversary.
Download it. It's really good. I'm not just saying that because I'm on it. Good. But
yeah, I listened to it. It's seriously amazing. So I will admit it's the first Materia album I've listened to beginning to end.
I'm almost there listening to it the whole way through. It's just so good. A few more tracks.
Yeah. So Ice Mountain, if you were familiar with it, from Sonic Advance, it's kind of I honestly don't know what genre I put the song in, but there's a lot of piano, some strings, It's a very piano-driven song. It was composed by Yutaka Minobe, and if you know of his work in the Sonic community, he's kind of Sega's resident pianist. So piano is very dominant in his tracks. But it has a very lighthearted kind of feel to it. And I thought... So the reason I chose it was because... I was doing it for the Sonic album, but more specifically, it's because Sonic Advance was the first Sonic game that I owned. And Ice Mountain was always one of my favorite zones in the game. Even though there are songs I like better on that soundtrack, like Egg Rocket, I thought, okay, well, Egg Rocket's really the most popular song in this game. I want to do something that's not going to be quite as expected. So I guess there's another thing. I just enjoy. I'm drawn to the idea of doing things that are abnormal, which probably influences my taste in music being abnormal.
Hey.
So, I mean, maybe not abnormal, but just not typical, I guess.
Not what most people are used to.
So, yeah. So, basically, I thought, okay, well, here's Ice Mountain. And I was thinking, okay, I want to do... my first thought was I want to do a rock track here. And actually, initially, it was going to be like a ska punk sort of thing, but that kind of dissolved because I didn't work on it for a long time, and when I finally picked it back up, that idea had kind of passed. But so I was coming back to it with nothing more than I want to do a rock track out of this. Right. And so I started thinking, the first thing I thought of was, okay, how will I do the rhythm? How will I do the drum section? Because originally, it's kind of... it's not like a steady beat, and I wanted to make it steady and driving. So I was inspired. I started thinking in the direction of like the modern remixes from the Sonic Generations series.
Yeah.
And I thought of one of my favorite modern remixes from that game, which was Chemical Plant Zone, where the tempo of the song was halved, and then the drums played in double time. So the melody ended up being slower than the original, but it had a lot of energy because the drums were in a double time kind of rock sort of situation. So I thought, what if I apply that same logic to Ice Mountain? So I came up with that, and then everything kind of followed naturally. So when I go about arranging a song, especially if I'm deviating from the original style, I keep two things in mind, and that is the melody and the form. And even then, I deviate from the form a bit. So I guess the melody and harmony are the two things I keep in mind. So what I would do is I'd work out the basic melody and the chord progression, and I would just go from there and do my own thing with it and kind of ignore any of the extra stuff that's going on in the background. So I would take the style that I'm in. Okay, here's a chord progression. I lay down some guitars and some bass. Okay, here's my melody, and I played that on the piano, or rather a synth, in the first section. But basically, the point that I'm getting at was that there's a lot of stuff going on in the original arrangement, and what I did was I just took the very basic core elements, which were the melody and the harmony, and put them in to this groove that I had already come up with. Charles, do you have anything to like? So how do you
I think
start? Because like I said, I mean, it's just melody and harmony for me, and after that, I kind of just do whatever based on whatever genre that I chose.
Right. I think that's the best way to go about it. Sometimes taking the original style in mind, if that's what you want to do, but I think the best way for you to really take an idea and run with it is if you just look at it based on that most simplistic level, based on melody and harmony. It lets you write your own things around that. It lets you can mess with the harmony a little if you want to, mess with the melody.
Because you're not bound by any of the extra stuff that came with the style that it was presented in originally.
Right.
You just have the most basic core element that is the song.
Right. I just finished up a cover of Waterfall from Undertale for a big charity album called Multiplayer 3. wave. Just check that out. But I don't want to talk about that too much. But basically, that one I listened. I just pulled up a song by a jazz fusion group I really like called Snarky Puppy. I like the style. I like the groove a lot. And for whatever reason, I thought it could work well with this incredibly brooding song that is Waterfall. Because if you listen to the original, it's really like orchestral and booming. It's like bum 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 bum, like, you know, ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
So I decided to take it and like make it, you know, have like an almost Latin inspired groove to it, and make it faster. Change the time signature actually, because the main part that has that groove is in 3/4. So for my arrangement, I decided to change it to 4/4 and change the melody to work with that.
How do you really like think too much about that when you do it, or is it just something that kind of happens naturally? When you change time signatures?
I don't remember. See, like some of the time signature change stuff that I do is just like to give me extra time. If like something is 4/4, I want like a held thing instead of giving it a fermata, because I don't know how long that really is, because that's typically determined by a conductor. I will just explicitly put like, we're in 4/4. Okay, now we're in 6/4 for one bar, just so we get 2 extra beats, and then we're back to 4/4. That's something else I did for something else that's coming down the pipeline.
But when you're like, you know, transposing a melody from one time signature to another,
it depends on like how hard the melody is to change to the other time signature. I think it was kind of easier for Waterfall because like Undertale very heavily relies on motifs in its soundtrack. So I think
it's
that
probably been presented in another time signature in some other song.
In that way there. I don't remember what song it would be off the top of my head, but it's like, okay, it was kind of easy. It was easier than it would be otherwise to do something like that.
Mm-hmm. I find it pretty easy to change melodies from one time signature to another, just in general.
Right.
But it's really difficult for me to kind of explain exactly why. It probably has something to do with like altering it to keep the notes that are on strong beats and stuff like that. But it's not something I've ever analyzed.
Right. And I mean, I also haven't done that too terribly much, like for an entire piece. Like I have never taken like a 4/4 song and put it in 5/4 for the entire thing. So I really get comfortable with that and like need to change it.
Yeah.
But for Waterfall, like, because that was a very derivative arrangement from the original, as I said before, and I've done several of these before, but it was just like, because I saw the story, like, as crazy of a story as it was, like, you're starting out, it's similar to the original. It's like really calm, you're cruising down like the water looking at the sights, and then the Latin groove kicks in, and suddenly all these rapids are going really fast. You're falling down like tiny waterfalls, and it all gets really hectic. Mm-hmm. Before it eventually like comes back down to that same, you know, brooding feeling at the end when you've had that adrenaline rush and it's all over.
Yeah. I really do think like having an image in your mind of like what you're trying to accomplish is really the best. Is really a best case scenario, which this goes for both arranging and composing. When you want to create some kind of sound, to have some idea in your head, some picture in your mind of what you're going for.
Right. And like,
because I think if you can do that, then if you do your arrangement properly, then that will translate to the listener.
Right. I think that's the first time that I've like ever actually done that before, like had a full story outlined, because for my cover of Fear, which you were a part of from Final Fantasy VIII, which was another derivative cover, It was just kind of like, I like this groove. I think it could work with the song. Let's run with it. Special.
Which, I mean, I guess there's nothing really wrong
right
with that. I mean, because some songs, like, there are plenty of songs that don't communicate any kind of picture to me other than just they're fun.
They're just groovy, man.
And that's awesome.
It's all right with me. But it's like, when you have that story, you know, like, it can influence your direction a bit. And it definitely influenced the direction that I took for that track.
And so there are some things that you can do when you have, you know, an image or a story in mind. So you can you can use that to, since that's like your initial inspiration, you can use that to feed your inspiration when you're having trouble coming up with stuff. So you might say, okay, well, like, this waterfall, like, breaks off into, you know, several different, you know, streams or whatever. Maybe that would be a good place to add more instruments or something like that to represent that.
Right.
You know, just things like that. You can use details in whatever's going on in your head and represent them musically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I haven't done any, you know, proper covers on my channel in a couple months, I think. I've just been republicizing old format covers and stuff like that lately while my channel's on hiatus, because I'm working on a concept album that I will not have announced by the time this video goes up, but it will be very soon.
Enter the No Shred Challenge.
Oh yes, do that. You have, like, by the time this video goes up, you'll have, like, 1 day.
You can do it, I believe.
It is, assuming you've actually listened to this far in, Joshua, youtube.com/Joshua Taipale. There's a thing, No Shred Challenge, where you just play it solo and you don't shred. Just, yeah.
Because he doesn't like shredding.
I love shredding. I just don't like it when it's all everywhere. Right. So the last cover that I was working on before I went on hiatus was a cover of the new Tag Nav. It's been so long I forgot the name. The Corneria.
It was
remix?
Corneria.
Corneria. Okay. Yeah. So the new version of Corneria from Star Fox Zero. Because I was listening to the Star Fox soundtrack when it, like, the new one when it came out, and Corneria was like, it instantly caught my ear because it was so cool. And I listened to the string part, you know, the that sort of thing.
That's how it's gonna sound in the cover, everybody.
Yeah,
just like that.
I thought that's like perfectly suited to that. Sounds like a guitar thing, right? That sounds like something you'd hear a metal player do.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be perfectly suited to playing in, like, a hard rock style. So I started arranging a cover based on that idea, and that hasn't gone super far, just because I went on hiatus to deal with all this other stuff. But I was translating all of that to a rock context, so I was going to replace all the strings and the brass and stuff with guitars and synths and stuff like that. So basically, my approach to that song was less of like, okay, well, how can I communicate, you know, this idea in a different way so much. I didn't really have any, like, story or anything like that in mind. It was more of, how can I repurpose this song in a different genre? Just because, why not? It's cool. It's really well suited to it, and I can play it, and it'll be fun.
Right.
So that definitely took more in mind than just the melody, because I was also trying to repurpose some of the rhythm section stuff with my own, instruments, and try and see how much of it I could repurpose. So counter melodies and all that kind of stuff, I wanted to try incorporating those with different instruments, because, just changing an instrument that something's played on really drastically changes the sound.
Right. Like for you, what usually like inspires those changes?
Changes of instrument from one thing to another. I mean, probably the first thing I would look at is the genre.
It's true.
Because if I'm doing a song that's originally like an orchestra and I'm going for rock, then my instrument set's pretty much limited to drums, bass, guitars.
And air who wouldn't work too well for rock now there.
And I mean, I do love like working with unusual instruments in any situation, but if I want specifically to go for a more traditional kind of rock sound, then I probably won't go more than just, you know, drums, bass, guitars, piano, synth, and that's about it.
Right.
So usually, I would generally, you know, use synths for melodies, piano for like backing parts and stuff like that. I worked on a song recently, which I can't talk about too specifically, but I decided to work with the same genre that it was originally presented in and just do my own take on it. So what would I do if I were trying to do something with this genre? And so I ended up the whole instrument set is very different than the original, even though it is the same genre. Because I wanted to go for a bit of a more organic feel. So I used more real instruments. Not, I mean, a lot of them are sampled, but
yeah, you didn't call me in to play saxophone.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm hurt.
So that was like the one situation where I didn't want a more real sound. I specifically wanted a kind of a 90s sax, so I went for my Korg.
You needed to download the sexy saxophone VST though.
So I wanted to go for kind of a more organic sound than the original portrayed. So I had, you know, sampled drums from like a real kit instead of electronic drums like in the original. Instead of synth based, I used sampled, you know, live, like a real bass that was sampled, you know, stuff like that. And I think it ended up turning out really nicely, just instrument swapping, basically.
It's gonna knock your socks off when you hear it.
It's gonna be good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really proud of it.
It was so good.
I have not got any email from Sebastian or Doug on that, so I feel pretty good about it.
We're cutting that part out because they can't know what the project is. They can't get.
They don't know. Material works on like 3,000 things at a time.
No, now they know who it's for. Oh no. But yeah, like with all this other arrangement stuff that I've been doing of other people's work, I haven't had much time as I'd like anyway, to compose my own stuff or revisit old compositions I've done and make them, you know, better, make them new again. I know that with this concept album, you've been doing a lot of rearrangements of your own material, your own stuff. So what's that like for you?
So, yeah, I'm kind of in the same position as Charles. And so you kind of have to pick one or the other. So I ended up dropping out of a lot of cover, you know, projects. And that's why I went on hiatus on my channel to work on this album. So I am doing a lot of, you know, revisiting old work and just kind of like repurposing it and stuff. So it is interesting rearranging your own work because like you went through the whole process of composing it and arranging it for the first time yourself, and so it's a different thing than like arranging somebody else's song because you know very intimately everything that went on with the first version of the track. So it still follows all the same principles. You just take a look at the most important elements and you can do whatever you want from there. But I think the fact that just speaking for myself, I think the fact that I went through the entire process of composing a song and arranging a song makes it difficult to kind of separate from certain elements because all of them feel important to me. in the original arrangement, because it all tells the story or situation or whatever that I want it to tell. And so trying to present it in a different situation is usually kind of difficult unless I have some great inspiration already there. So, for example, I started arranging this one character theme, and it was a theme that was really important to me. It was the first time that I wrote a song that I would kind of define it as like the first song that I wrote that kind of separated my noob composing days with where I started to actually kind of know what I was doing. Because at that point I was starting to begin to understand music theory, and so I wrote it with some of that knowledge in mind, and it was a lot more coherent than my other stuff. So it's really important to me, and the original arrangement was really important to me. So trying to like reimagine it as something else was really weird. And I had a lot of trouble trying to come up with something else with a different genre or a different set of instruments or something like that still carried the same tone as the original. And what I ended up doing involved most of the same instruments, but it was just performed differently. So with different techniques and articulations. And also, like, the biggest thing for me, which was honestly a bit of a surprise, the original was in 6/8 time, and I changed it to 3/4. And even though those tempos, those time signatures are very similar, they're different enough that just making that one change changed the entire way that the song came across. And so because the new arrangement is a medley of that song and a different one.
I know which one you're talking about now.
Yeah, it's that song and a different one. The second of those two songs ended up being arranged very, very differently than the original. Instead of keeping most of the same tone, it went completely in a different emotional direction. And that one was a lot easier to do, just because I'd already kind of built a framework with the first song in the medley. So I already had some kind of a ground to work with. But overall, the process was pretty much the same. Just, here's the melody, here's the chord progression, now I'll take it in a different direction. So what really got me through it, aside from changing the time signature, which, really helped give me the push that I needed, what really got me through it was trying to imagine a different way to look at this character. Because originally I wrote it with certain attributes in mind, and since then I've expanded on the character's personality, and I thought, okay, well, I can use this as an opportunity to express different attributes now. And so I had that in mind, and I'm like, okay, well, here I can use these different techniques to kind of express these ideas. And so when I started thinking in that manner, it really opened up a lot of new ideas.
So yeah, try arranging a thing.
Yes, please do.
Just think of some wild, outlandish, crazy idea for a song you like.
Hey.
Turn a gentle ballad to your unborn children into a Dixieland jazz tune. You may find something nice.
F-Zero. Big Blue.
Yes.
Polka.
Yes.
See, it's not hard.
Right. Hey, I like that.
Let's just do like an F-Zero polka album.
Yes. Dude, I'm so down.
Go completely Al Yankovic with it.
Yeah. Write some original raps over Mega Man tunes, for example.
Yeah.
I want to do some of that. I want to do like more rap writing, cause like a certain musical has like boosted me up in that regard.
Just like take all the Donkey Kong Country songs and just make them all DK raps.
Yes. CG coconut gun. Huh.
Okay, so I think that's all that we really have to say.
Yeah.
Do go check out Charles's work. I don't know your YouTube URL. I always forget it.
Boy,
what is it?
youtube.com/Charles Ritz Music.
And
like, comment, subscribe, friends. Check out Multiplayer 3, because I think it'll be out by the time this happens.
I hope so.
Me too.
Nobody will listen this far in.
Right. Ooh,
yeah.
Do you want to do the thing again?
What thing?
Did we do it last time? Like, if you listen this far in.
Oh, yeah.
Did we do that?
Okay, so if you're some weird, crazy person who listened to this far in, or you really just have nothing else to do, in the comments, hashtag F0Poca.
Yes. Took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay,
add us on Twitter.
Yes, please do.
Do it. At Ongaku Concept, at Charles R Music.
And at Joshua Taipale.
Yeah, why not?
Also, next week will probably be another less produced video, but I will be getting back to doing more serious, high production Ongaku Concept videos very soon. Just gotta get this album together. So,
what are you talking about? These podcasts are the most high-produced content on the channel.
I'll see you guys next week. Later.
Bye!